Guys, it's going so well. It's going unbelievably well, dude. This is W after W. Okay, when the president is crying on Truth Social like this about all of our most valuable strategic allies, that's obviously a sign that things are going so well. All right, let's get started. Breaking: Trump issues new ultimatum to Europe. He's trying a new method. Okay, it's day 31 of Operation Epic Fortnite Fail, Operation Epstein's Fury, Operation Epic Fail, whatever you want to call it. And Donald Trump is going through the phases of tacoing and then turning around and saying, no, we're going to pummel them even harder. We're going to send troops there. We're going to, we've won the war. We haven't won yet, but we're going to win it any day now. Strait of Hormuz is open for business as long as someone is like brave enough to try it. Okay, maybe it's not open, but also you. Now, the new meta for Trump is to pout like a little baby. First, if you recall in the beginning of the decapitation strike that they engaged in this war of choice, Donald Trump had said, I don't even want the UK to send any of their assets because the UK, they're made all this stuff, right? We don't even need them. That was his attitude, right? Well, it's been 31 days. No visible accomplishments have taken place. America's not winning the war, even though Americans think that America is winning the war because we're some of the most propagandized people on the planet. Donald Trump has decided he's going to try a new technique, which is I'm just going to withdraw. I'm going to retreat, and the Strait of Hormuz will be closed, and you'll see what it's like when I'm gone. Like he's doing the world is ending. Anybody want to tell me with me right before the world ends? Like he's doing that type of shit where he's like, oh, I bet you'll be sad when I'm dead. And I don't think he wants to see the actual results of that, right? Like no one want me. Who want me? Who want me? Anyway.
Trey Yinks, he is live in Israel with the very latest. Trey, good morning.
Yeah, hey guys, good morning. Just last hour, President Trump issuing a new ultimatum to European countries about the Strait of Hormuz. President Trump taking to Truth Social to say, quote, all of those countries that can't get jet fuel because of the Strait of Hormuz, like the United Kingdom, which refused to get involved in the decapitation of Iran. I have a suggestion for you. Number one, buy from the U.S. We have plenty. And number two, build up some delayed courage. Go to the Strait and just take it. You'll have to start learning how to fight for yourself. The USA won't be there to help you anymore, just like you weren't there for us. The president goes on to say Iran has been essentially decimated. The hard part is done. Go get your own oil. Now, overnight, the United States hit an Iranian ammunition depot, reportedly with 2,000-pound bunker buster bombs. That, according to the Wall Street Journal. The president released some video on Truth Social overnight showing the massive amount of destruction outside the city of Isfahan. While the U.S. and Israel are ramping up pressure on the Islamic Republic, President Trump is still offering Iran a chance at a diplomatic solution. Iran has continued its ballistic missile attacks against Israel with 2 waves targeting central Israel last night and another 2 cluster munitions strikes this morning against Tel Aviv. With a focus on Iran, Israel has expanded ground operations against Hezbollah in southern Lebanon. The military says dozens of militants were killed there in recent days. And today, Israel's defense minister, Israel Katz, announced that Israel is building a buffer zone in southern Lebanon up to the Litani River. The IDF announced that 4 additional Israeli soldiers were killed yesterday, bringing the total since the Lebanon operation began to 10 killed. On Monday, a funeral was held for one of those soldiers, just 19 years old. Now the region waiting to see what will be said at this briefing at the Pentagon, as once again, President Trump is offering the Iranian regime diplomacy. If they do not take his offer, officials say this war will escalate. Guys?
So, Trey, we saw the attack on the Gulf states and on Israel. But can you compare the number of attacks now as opposed to 1 week ago, 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago?
Yeah, the Lebanese incursion, to say the least, is not going well. There was a guy from Connecticut, as a matter of fact, who chose to fly out to Israel, the apartheid state, conducting a genocide, and do the genocide himself. He was like, I'm going to take matters in my own hands. And as a part of that, they sent his ass to Lebanon, and he died. And apparently, he was actually supposed to come back to the United States of America. And it's hard. It's really hard to to look at that situation and be like, well, you brought this on yourself, you know? Like, it's just so difficult for me to look at that situation and be like, you were living in the lap of luxury in the imperial court in the United States of America, and you chose to put on the Nazi uniform to go and like kill people in Lebanon, to kill people in Gaza. And you know, you can't do that any longer because you were invading Lebanon. It's tough, real tough. Obviously, as you guys know, I am in favor of prosecuting all war criminals that go and adorn the garb of a foreign state's militia. You know, I think like there is functionally no difference than some American or Westerner literally joining. Okay, it's just not different. Like, the only difference is we don't receive these people in the same way. We don't look at these people in the same way. We just think like, no, that's an ally, so it's totally appropriate for them to go and do genocide. I don't think so.
The U.S. and Israeli campaign against the Iranian regime has been very successful in going not just after the launching positions of these missiles and drones, as we've seen in new video from U.S. Central Command, but also, importantly, going after the production sites. What President Trump is ordering here is a decapitation not only of Iran's military leadership, but also of their production lines, so that in the future they're not able to threaten U.S. forces or allies across the region. And we have seen those videos of decimation to the Iranian regime. This is a very large country, though, and that is part of the reason that these strikes continue, often on an hourly basis. And despite the fact that the Iranians can still get off ballistic missile fire and drone attacks against Israel and Gulf countries, their ability to do so and to resupply has been destroyed.
Be sure to like and subscribe for all the Fox News latest on YouTube and catch full.
President Trump.
Anyway, Trump slams U.S. allies again over their stance on the Strait of Hormuz. Now, you have to understand, their stance over the Strait of Hormuz is just, can you please not around with the Strait of Hormuz so, you know, we can get energy. We can get our oil and gas tankers out of there. Okay, that's their stance. The problem is America and Israel had very different opinions, and they followed through on their desires. And of course, now the Strait of Hormuz is closed, and it's ridiculous because they didn't have a say in this process at all, right? They had no say in this process. America and Israel decided the fate of mankind for everybody else, basically. And because they could not accomplish their military objectives, I mean, Israel's military objectives are total death and destruction regardless. America's military objectives are like regime decapitation and then like new regime implementation, right? And neither of those goals are being accomplished as it stands currently. It's now they're just like flinging wildly, or at least Trump is like yelling at people who had nothing to do with this, right? People and countries that had nothing to do with this at all and would have absolutely chosen to not have this complete collapse of the energy markets around the globe.
Trump is slamming U.S. allies for failing to help secure the Strait of Hormuz. He posted this message on social media, writing, quote, "You'll have to start learning how to fight for yourself. The USA won't be there to help you anymore. Just like you weren't there for us."
Yeah, you'll miss me when I'm gone. Like, that's what he's saying. It's like, dog, I don't think you should remind people. Maybe it's just me, but I don't think you should remind people what it would feel like or what it would look like if you were no longer here, okay? It's one of those things where it's like, I feel like that's unproductive, right? It's not dissimilar to Israel reminding people like Hamas is just like ISIS or Hamas is the real Nazis. It's like, if I were in your shoes, well, first of all, I'm not going to say what I would do if I were in your shoes, but in a hypothetical scenario, if I was trying to do propaganda for the genocidal apartheid state, I probably wouldn't remind people of another genocidal apartheid state that existed throughout history that did its own Holocaust, you know? I just wouldn't remind people of that comparison because out of the two groups, between the Palestinian resistance and Israel, I think when you invite that comparison, people are inevitably going to go, wait a minute, but you kind of remind me of what the Nazis are doing. And it's not dissimilar to that when Trump reminds people what it would be like if he was not around. I think that's people popping champagne moment, right? Third way, left wing anti-Semitism, often savvy in the brash neo-Nazi rhetoric on the right. Okay, man, there's no motion.
Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth doubled down on the sentiment in a press briefing this morning.
This was awesome. This was awesome. Israelis themselves r/ask Israel, and we'll talk about that in a second. Of course, I wouldn't be so anti-Semitic to demand that Israel also send their own ground forces into Iran. Obviously, I would never in a million years come up with an anti-Semitic opinion such as that one. That would require the Israeli occupying forces to fight against not babies, but instead against adult men. And obviously demanding that is probably the peak anti-Semitism. I mean, straight up, it's not going to happen.
There are countries around the world who ought to be prepared to step up on this critical waterway as well. It's not just the United States Navy. Last time I checked, there was supposed to be a big bad Royal Navy that could be prepared to do things like that as well.
CBS News senior White House correspondent Weijia Jiang joins us now. So Weijia, you actually spoke to the president this morning about the war in Iran. What did he have to share?
That's right, Kelly. I called him because I was looking for some clarification about that Truth Social post.
It's so funny. Like, dude, there's one country that you should be actually getting mad at. The country that goaded you into doing this spectacular flub, this spectacular failure. That country is not like Spain or Italy. It's Israel. Like all of this stuff that he's mad about. He's like, oh, these guys aren't doing anything. These guys aren't doing anything. Okay, send the Israeli Navy. Why is Israel not escorting tankers out of the Strait of Hormuz with their Navy? Why is Israel not sending their ground troops? Where's this energy for the one country that goaded you into doing this? Very strange stuff. Also, ironic considering, only 2 weeks ago, Donald Trump's like, we don't need anybody. United States have informed by most of our NATO allies that they don't want to get involved with our military operation against the terrorist regime of Iran in the Middle East. This, despite the fact that almost every country strongly agreed with what we are doing. Okay. Did you see Steve Bannon said Yair Netanyahu should be sent to fight in Iran? Maybe not the best look for the Dems to be outflanked by Nazis. I agree. Also, Steve Bannon is like he's not a real anti-Israel voice, right? Like saying Steve Bannon is like anti-Israel is like saying Steve Bannon is anti-Jeffrey Epstein. You know what I mean? He's the opposite of both of those things, but he can present himself as that. And because Republicans are cattle, most of them go, oh, I agree. He's kind of going beast mode, Anyway, getting back to this, he basically said, we spend billions of dollars on NATO and we're doing everything. We've destroyed the Iranian Navy. They're gone. They're done. They've perished. We don't need anybody else. 2 weeks ago, he was saying, it's victory time. There have been approximately 20 additional victory announcements since then, and yet no victory is in sight for some weird reason. Apparently, Israeli news said they have a red line and will not be sending ground forces. They don't have ground forces. Their ground forces can only do genocide. They only know how to kill unarmed Palestinians. I cannot explain this enough. I'm not even joking. Look at what the is going on in Lebanon. Okay? Look at what's happening in Lebanon. Hezbollah is melting their Merkava tanks. $6 million a pop, $10 million a pop with the trophy systems and everything else included. They're losing like 10 tanks a day. Hezbollah is literally whipping them. Okay? And that is not the IRGC, my friend, because Hezbollah is still a paramilitary formation inside of Lebanon, one that was born out of Israel's initial incursion, Israel's initial violence, and it's still not a standing army of a sovereign state, okay? And even then, the Israeli occupying forces are eating unlimited bags of in Lebanon. Okay, here's some updates from Hezi. Hezbollah has been attacking for over an hour straight now. Ynet heavy barrage from Lebanon, alarms in Haifa, and reports of casualties. Israeli occupational forces spokesperson says there was no advance warning about Hezbollah's extensive shooting tonight. Iraq Shida Al Jazeera, we have not made any decision about the negotiations and we have reservations about them. Our conditions for ending the war are clear. We will not accept a ceasefire, but we strive for a complete end to the war, not just in Iran, but the entire region. Okay, advance warning during war is so funny. They're like, hold on. wait a minute, but this doesn't make sense. This doesn't make sense. Why are they fighting back? Why won't they let us invade? Southern Lebanon is ours. Don't you know? It was promised to me 3,000 years ago. Like, that's literally the argument. America and Israel are such spoiled children in the way that they operate, where the American government's like, why is Iran attacking our military bases in the region? Why won't they just like let us, why won't they let us deploy aerial campaigns from air bases that are slammed in the ass cheeks of Iran? Don't you know that's illegal? And Israel's doing the same energy. Israel's basically behaving in the same exact way with Hezbollah in Lebanon, where they're like, I don't understand. Why are we not allowed to like blow up bridges, doctors, journalists, without any sort of pushback whatsoever, right? Why is that allowed? I don't understand.
That he posted about the Strait of Hormuz, in which he, just like we heard from Secretary Hegseth, was really going after allies and expressing a fresh round of frustration. But it made it sound like the U.S. could leave, because he said, you'll have to start learning how to fight for yourself. The USA won't be there to help you anymore, just like you weren't there for us.
Oh, God. Say this about Israel, bro. Say this about Israel, please. Why are you saying this about like European partners that had nothing to do with this and are smart enough to not get involved and are just trying to sit this out, hoping that America will be more reasonable? Eyvallah. Just the entitlement that we demonstrate on a daily basis is unbelievable, dude. It's so funny. It's so stupid. It's so funny. It's so ridiculous. Like, how dare they? That's the attitude. It's always like, how dare they fight back? How dare the European allies don't immediately muster up the forces to fight our war? And it's not even our war. It's Israel's war, really. It's so unbelievably entitled. It's so arrogant. And in the absence of any sort of soft power initiative, America is going to lose out on what remains of the allegiances that they have with even the vassal states. Great job.
So I asked him whether that meant that the U.S. would start pooling assets in and around the strait. And the president told me not yet. He said that the U.S. would be there, but again said that, it's not the U.S. that really needs this oil that is going through there, but allies and other countries, which, of course, for weeks now he has been calling on.
Yeah, that's great. That's a great reminder, by the way, to everyone else around the world, especially in like the Chinese area of influence, that you do not give about them at all. Like, you will literally make decisions in other parts of the planet that will genuinely bring financial calamities upon them, right? A totally man-made energy crisis that is completely unnecessary, and you brought it about, and now you're saying, it doesn't even hurt us. Who is this for? Like, who is this for? If you are in a developing country that has an American military base, okay? If you're in a developing country that's in like the Chinese sphere of influence and you have an American military base, you have to really reconsider that, right? Like, you have to be like, okay, that's insane. You're causing tremendous suffering here because you decided to go to war with Iran, and now the Strait of Hormuz is closed. Now I can't get energy on my energy grid, and you've also completely given up on defending the other countries that I'm looking at that have American military bases. They're basically just missile sponges. Why the should I continue with this? Like, how does this benefit me? Right? America is no longer the guarantor of stability. Okay? It's not. Matter of fact, American presidents invokes instability. And on top of that, America doesn't even do anything to save face. They don't even try to make it seem like we are trying to stabilize the world. We're coming out in this like unbelievably arrogant way and openly telling anyone who will listen, anyone who accidentally even hears what we have to say, that we don't give a about them. I think this is sheer imperial hubris, okay? especially at a time when America is very clearly overextended, when the American empire is coming to a close, right? And American force projection capabilities have diminished in the eyes of the world, right? Everyone can see it, right? Everyone recognizes that American imperialism is a paper tiger, and yet they're still operating on, you know, the last couple of decades propaganda, where we are saying to the rest of the world, like, we don't give a fuck about you. We don't give a fuck about you. What are you going to do about it? We have a military base on your soil, and you're going to and you're going to like it.
You know, if these countries want the oil, they're going to have to come in and eventually do their own work. He did not give a timeline for how long the U.S. would remain in and around that strait, though. Of course, the reason why that matters is because the oil that is trying to get through there impacts the entire global supply of oil and gas prices, which includes the now $4 a gallon average here at home. And I asked the president about that as well. He says that the prices will go down when the war is over. But obviously, this is a huge concern, not only for the president, but for many Republicans as they are eyeing that critical November date for midterm elections. You know, we'll have to see what the next move is here. But as far as the strait goes, that is what the president said about U.S. involvement.
And Weijia, we've also seen this morning the president via Truth Social directly criticize France, writing that it has been very unhelpful in relation to the war. Around this time yesterday, we spoke with a French minister and we asked her why her nation has decided not to help secure the Strait of Hormuz with the U.S. Let's just quickly play for our viewers what she said.
Our intention is that we can resume as soon as possible trade, but we need to do it once we can secure the situation and ensure that we are defensive, not offensive. We do not want to enter into a war without a framework, without a sort of certain guarantees, and this is why we might seem skeptical, but our intention is really to protect our citizens.
And she also mentioned there are some 400,000 French nationals in the region that they want to protect. So based on your conversation with the president this morning, you've covered him for many years. You can kind of read between the lines sometimes and understand his tone. What do you think about his frustration with allies like France, and why is he choosing today to lash out?
I did ask him, Errol, did something happen that triggered this post about the allies? And he didn't answer it explicitly, but he just went on to complain about how they were not there for the U.S. And he also mentioned NATO, and that NATO has also been, quote, terrible. The difference, though, Errol,
Are freedom fries back on the menu? Hell yeah, dude. The country of France wouldn't let planes headed to Israel loaded up with military supplies fly over French territory. France has been very unhelpful with respect to the butcher of Iran, which, you know, are you talking about yourself? Are you talking about Netanyahu? Or are you talking about the Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, who's now dead, who has been successfully eliminated? The USA will remember. And Italy also had some smoke as well. Now Italy follows Spain in denying U.S. landing rights. Poland refuses to transfer Patriot missiles. Cracks appear in the U.S.-UK intelligence sharing. The transatlantic alliance is breaking down in real time. I never thought that I would see my goat, J.D. Pondon, do this. The Donnie Dean himself, okay, actually shake up American hegemony in such spectacular fashion in such a short period of time. Oh my Lord, dude. Yeah, also a demand from Poland to transfer their Patriot missiles to Israel is an admission that they're running out, okay? They're running out. Shouts out to the Polish, by the way. Shouts out to the Polish. My kings, defend yourselves, okay? Defend your sovereignty. My goats. Fuck you mean you're going to hurry away Patriot defenses to mother Israel? That's not the reason. What's the reason? They just want Poland to be unguarded against like Russian incursion. Is that what it is? I've been screaming about this for years. If the left in Europe refuse to capitalize on American decline by pushing for decoupling from the U.S. as a core foreign policy pitch on their agenda, then the right eventually will. It's a perfect popular argument to couple with class-conscious politics, European sovereignty, and an independent path. It ticks all the principled and practical boxes and will only grow in popularity. I've made this argument quite a bit as well. Luckily, in France, LFI is capitalizing on this, and yet none of the other quote unquote socialist parties are doing so. I guess the only one that you can associate with like social democracy or like the left flank is the Spanish Socialist Party, which is not really, let's be real, it's not a real socialist party at all. But Pedro PSOE is doing at least like he's moving in that direction, and he's winning a lot of favor for it as well. LFI is fully occupying the anti-war space. Yeah, they have an alliance with the left party. Sorry to inform you that Die Linke is doubling down on their Israel support. Ugh. Anyway, left parties, true left parties must make this argument. Okay? True left parties must make this argument, or else they will lose to fascists. That's it. This is not true. From what I understand, Die Linke has quite a bit of problems internally about how to deal with the issue of Israel. Am I wrong about this assessment? From what I've seen, there is like a lot of internal back and forth about like, can we be anti-Zionist? Should we say that we're anti-Israel? Or are we allowed to even say that legally? That's what I've seen. And that creates bad messaging overall. This is not the time to have those internal conversations. This is the time to be bold. And if you don't do that, the AFD will come in and occupy that space, occupy that lane, right? It's a spectacular flub. It's a so is all the right wing, and the center just wants more money for the old rich. So yeah, all good, I guess. Yeah. Luckily, the Greens are doing a much better job, helmed by Hasanabi head Zach Polanski, and they're under fire. For the record, they are under attack for that reason. But they are owning that space, and that's a good space to own. Anyway, I thought AFD supported Israel. AFD are a bunch of reactionary grifters. They're Nazis, so they'll say whatever they need to say to win elections. Okay, that's just the case. One unintentional byproduct of this instability in the global energy markets is also Europe very quickly realizing that energy independence comes from renewables and redoubling their efforts in purchasing as many Chinese products as they possibly can. So that's good. Donald Trump and his psychotic, bloodthirsty nature has unironically caused Europe to remember, oh shit, like we do need renewable energies for energy independence, as a matter of fact. And we do have to get them from China because they basically own that space. So that's cool. Good luck to everybody. Donald Trump obviously had a response to that. He said, just buy the gas and oil from us. We have gas and oil. Buy it from us. And that's what he said.
That, and this is something that the Secretary of State has brought up as well, which is, look, we were there for the Ukraine-Russia war, and that's not our war. The difference is that the U.S. is a member of NATO. And so that is why it is involved with that war, because obviously there are interests there to ensure or try to ensure Russia does not strike a NATO ally, because that would pull the U.S. into that conflict. What we're hearing from the French here and from other allies with regard to the Iran war is that we didn't start this. We didn't have anything to do with this war. In fact, we were not even given a heads up that the U.S. was going to strike. So that's why they say now they shouldn't have to be involved with the cleanup and with getting potentially, pulled in to that conflict.
I think the ones that get over here will always be the ones that don't demonstrate any sovereignty against America. And I'm, of course, referencing Japan. Takaichi is even more pro-America than previous formations in Japan, even though, like, obviously there's been practically uniparty rule since America wrote the Constitution. Japanese politics are so stupid. I'm sorry. I'm not going to get into it. The population does not give a shit about anything. I've never seen a more disillusioned country, a more disillusioned voter base that just goes, I don't know, I guess I'll just vote for this person. They're omega cucked. But Takaichi has been aggressively posturing against China and was sucking up to Donald Trump as recently as last month, even though America's initiatives in Iran have been devastating for Japan. Okay? Devastating for Japan. There are Japanese nationals that are in Iran. Japan relies on the Strait of Hormuz for all of its energy. And America did not even inform Japan that they were going to bomb Iran, which would lead to the closure of the Strait of Hormuz. That's an unbelievable mistake. It's not even a mistake. It's just an unbelievable way to show the Japanese people that, like, we don't give a about them. And yet Takaichi is so slammed so far up the ass cheeks of Donald Trump. It's incredible.
But the president clearly views it differently because, he says this does impact those countries and therefore they should be helping to try to secure the strait. What I got overall, Errol, was just a sense of readiness from the president to find a way out of this thing because he understands that time is ticking. I asked him for a fresh date about when the war might end. And he said that the administration was 2 weeks ahead of schedule. But remember, he set the schedule of 4 to 6 weeks from the very beginning of how long this could go on. And we are now in week 5, Errol.
It appears the U.S. is looking for some kind of off-ramp. Weijia Zhang with the latest on her conversation with President Trump. Weijia, thank you.
Some lines from Truth Social on Donald Trump saying that countries should buy oil from the United States, urging...
I love that. That was so... God, he is the GOAT. Things are going exceptionally well, okay? After berating and bullying every single European partner, he turns around and says, just buy the oil from us. Come on. Incredible, dude.
Countries to go to the Hormuz and take it, according to Donald Trump on Truth Social, and that countries should go and take the oil themselves and learn how to fight themselves. Let me just open up his Truth Social because I can assure you that it will be more verbose than the few lines that we're getting from the Reuters news agency. So just bear with me whilst I open up Truth Social. It's just verifying, but let's bring you the full transcript of what he had to say. So Donald Trump in the last 2 minutes saying this: all those countries that can't get jet fuel because of the Strait of Hormuz, like the United Kingdom, which refuse to get involved in the decapitation of Iran, I have a suggestion for you. Number one, buy from the US, we have plenty. And number two, build up some delayed courage. Go to the Strait and just take it. You have to start learning how to fight for yourself. The US won't be there to help you anymore, just like you weren't there for us. Iran has been essentially decimated. The hard part is done. Go get your own oil. So the breaking news in the past 2 minutes, Donald Trump posting on Truth Social the following.
It's such a funny thing to demand. It's such a funny thing to demand. We f***ed it up. We couldn't fix it. And you should now do something that we are incapable of doing with the greatest military force on the planet. I can't read this as anything but a total surrender. I just don't know if this is real or not. You know what I mean? I just don't think this is real because, like, everything that he's doing, first of all, everything he's done is up to this point is so inconsistent, right? One day he says he's doing total victory, unconditional surrender. The next day he's literally doing the unconditional surrender himself and trying to sidestep the blame over to Europe, which had nothing to do with this at all. And they're just simply suffering as vassal states. But then also he's simultaneously deploying more and more troops into the region. So I can't read this as him trying to find an off-ramp, but instead just a way to conduct his favorite activity, perfidy, right? Perfidy is done. He loves that shit. He loves doing a pump fake, right? Oh, we're going to do negotiations. Oops, we blew up your Ayatollah. So he's, who knows? Who knows which direction he's flailing in. There is still, like SGA, drawing fouls. True. Yusuf Manayar says U.S. stock markets are in the midst of a major rally on indicators that Trump may finally stop digging and start ending this stupid war. Oil markets, however, are showing no such optimism yet. Even if we wake up to a magical peace agreement tomorrow, the economic impacts will be with us for some time. A lot of people are refusing to recognize that, by the way. I find that rather strange.
All those countries that can't get jet fuel because of the Strait of Hormuz, like the United Kingdom, which refused to get involved in the decapitation of Iran, I have a suggestion for you. Number one, buy from the US. We have plenty. And number two, build up some delayed courage. Go to the Strait and just take it. You'll have to start learning how to fight for yourself. The USA won't be there to help you anymore, just like you weren't there for us. Iran has been essentially decimated. The hard part is done. Go get your own oil. President Donald J. Trump. That is in the last few moments. So explicit criticism there of the United Kingdom, explicit criticism for the UK not being involved in those initial strikes against Iran. Criticism for the fact that European countries have not been supportive of reopening and defending the Strait of Hormuz. It is a vital artery for supplies of oil, gas, crude products that make their way from not just Iran, but numerous Gulf states. So let's get more analysis on this with our military analyst, Sean Bell. Sean, this is quite the moment, I think it's fair to say, explicitly telling the UK either buy from us, which kind of tallies with the fairly kind of US-centric economy that the president's trying to build, and number two, if you don't want to do that, go to Hormuz and sort it out yourself.
Yeah, and it's somewhat missing the point, some of that, isn't it? Because this isn't just about availability of oil. America provides more than enough oil than it uses, but its prices have still gone up. It's about global prices for oil, and therefore, whilst there's still friction in the world, the global price will stay up. I think what's most interesting is we've seen a gradual simmering of President Trump, frustrating that he's the only country that's gone into this war, frustration that NATO allies weren't involved. It's not a NATO war. NATO is a defensive alliance. A frustration that countries like the UK haven't got directly involved.
What was the defensive posture of NATO with Libya? No, NATO is not a defensive alliance. It's never been a defensive alliance. It will engage in offensive shit. The only difference is most of the countries in Europe are led by people who at least have basic competence to recognize that this is biting off far more than America could chew. That's it. Mark Rutte has openly admitted that NATO is not a defensive alliance, by the way. He said the quiet part out loud. He also called Trump daddy, but that's besides the point. So the notion that like NATO is a defensive alliance is ridiculous. It has nothing to do with this. The reason why European partners are not leaning into this initiative is because this is not Libya, right? This is a sovereign country that has developed sovereignty over 47 years, specifically against the Western world, and have developed the tools to be able to maintain their sovereignty. And we're seeing the impact of that right now. Okay? Trump is also treating the GCC. What is this? Trump is also treating the GCC like ass. I don't know what the point is. It's because Trump doesn't give a the GCC, because Israel doesn't give a about the GCC. Remember that. Israel's goals are like a weakened GCC also suits Israel's goals here, right? So for that reason, it's perfectly fine for Donald Trump to like cook the petrodollar in this spectacular display. It doesn't make any sense for longevity. It doesn't make any long-term sense at all. But at this point, it's very hard to make sense of anything that Trump does, really. I try every day. And it's a defeat after defeat. None of it makes sense. And I don't know. I mean, it's totally antagonistic to any kind of like hegemony needs that America might have. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, it's not been clear what the legal justification for the war is, and quite rightly, I think, in most people's view, the British Prime Minister has been somewhat circumspect to getting dragged into it. But now you're seeing that despite the military dominance of America, Iran is still fighting. It's still able to launch counterattacks. And the Straits of Hormuz is now a real thorn in the side of Trump. And as we were talking about earlier, many of my military colleagues are saying that the most elegant way for America to extract itself is to celebrate that it's actually achieved its strategic objectives. It's left a few fires blazing, metaphorically. Straits of Hormuz is one of them. And actually gone, right, Europe, you're more reliant on the Straits of Hormuz than I am. Deal with it. I'll disappear. I'm the only president who could actually deal with this threat.
The president there taking real issue with the fact that there wasn't the courage, as he says, to have got involved earlier, and that the UK needs to start learning to fight for yourself. The UK won't be there to help you anymore. With the greatest respect to those involved in the British Armed Forces, would it not have been fairly tokenistic if the UK would have got involved? Because the US military is just so much bigger by magnitudes that actually whatever the UK did send wouldn't really have shifted the dial all that much, certainly not beyond what the US could have.
So this is correct. And I've repeatedly brought this point up. The real reason why America wants European partners to get involved actively is not because they are desperate for additional military presence. It's more so for the diplomatic pressure, right? Because Iran is a sovereign nation that wants to develop bilateral, unilateral, or like commitments with all these other countries. They want to be treated like a normal sovereign state, right? For many, many years, this has been denied of Iran because America is the hegemonic superpower and is in control of the ambitions of Western empire, right? So that's the major goal here, right? No, it's not ground troop fodder, dude. No, you think the American military is going to benefit tremendously from like 10,000 additional units coming from Europe? No, of course not. It's the same with Afghanistan and Iraq. It's more so to say, look, the whole world is against you. Okay? And with Afghanistan and Iraq, to a limited degree, many of these countries were dogs of empire, and they said yes, right? Because it was a very different dynamic. Iran is not like Iraq. It's not like Afghanistan. And that's precisely the reason why these guys are now saying, no, we're going to stay back on this one. You know, you got this. Okay? That's it. They can't develop a coalition of the willing here because most of these countries don't want to suffer the consequences. They don't want to suffer the domestic consequences because there is a tremendous anger against America, right? There is, they don't want to have to deal with like popular uprisings. They don't want to lose their power. And on top of that, they don't want the smoke. They would much rather deal with Iran diplomatically and cut side deals with Iran. It's not that's why I also laugh when like the GCC states will be like, we're going to join the battle. It's like, with what army? Like, you already have just more American tools, right? So if Iran is fighting against America, it's basically fighting against the entire world anyway. So what are you going to do? Like, what are you going to do? You're Saudi Arabia. What are you going to do? The United Arab Emirates. What are you going to do? I mean, you have nothing. So your theory, first of all, is that cricket walked on Byron Nome and the axe saw too much, and that's why cricket had to meet with his unfortunate tragic ending. Dogs know all our secrets. Cricket knew. What is this conversation, man? Ugh. Marco Rubio, if Europe won't allow us to use the bases we man and fund for their defenses when we need them, when we ought to close them down and remove our troops from Europe. If they get attacked by Russia, we can discuss whether or not we have time to help. I mean, that's spectacular. I mean, just straight up. Again, I wouldn't be saying this shit, especially right now. Okay? I wouldn't be saying this. Like, this is the worst time to say this. Okay? In the entire global design, post-World War II, New World Order, this is perhaps one of the worst times to make this threat a potential promise, okay?
And I've been a big supporter of NATO. And one of the reasons why I've been a supporter of NATO is because I believe that these basing rights give us leverage and give us flexibility and operational capability all over the world. But if NATO is just about us defending Europe if they're attacked, but them denying us basing rights when we need them, that's not a very good arrangement. That's a hard one to stay engaged in and say this is good for the United States. So all of them's going to have to be re-examined. All of it's going to have to be re-examined. And I've been a big supporter of.
Yeah, re-examine and what? You're going to pull out? No more NATO? Great. I mean, do you know how much sovereignty these countries could develop? Like, all these middle powers unironically could build a robust EU coalition without NATO. Okay? Without NATO, there isn't the constant presence of American troops on European soil. It's just America being forced to retreat, but claiming in a very funny way. They're saying, like, you can't fire me, I quit, right? You get pulled into the office and your boss is about to fire and you're like, I quit. You can't fire me. Okay, great. Fantastic. You know, at this point, Maoists should electorally support Trump. I mean, actually, yes. MAGA communists were right, just not in the way that they thought, this was going to unfold. Donald Trump has been the most successful anti-imperialist force that the Western world has ever seen. Okay, if you're a third worldist, Donald Trump is your guy.
Done and could still do by itself unilaterally.
You're absolutely right, but I think this is less about what militarily could be done and more the symbolism that rather than it being President Trump's war, it suddenly becomes an alliance war.
Give justification to it?
Yeah, and therefore also means that actually the alliance is sort of stepping in and having to deal with the fallout from this. By making it purely America's war, you know, there's long been a belief that Trump sort of went in there, a bit like he went into Venezuela, plucked out Maduro, operation over, success. And it looks likely he believed he could go in, decapitate the leadership of Tehran, there'd be an uprising, he'd be able to celebrate that I'm the only American president that had the chutzpah to do this. The harsh reality, of course, is that's not the way it's played out. He's got his hands firmly in the mangle, trying to find a way of extracting himself. And we always felt that he was going to start threatening all sorts of other people. I wouldn't be at all surprised still, though, that he will extract himself in some way. He'll celebrate success. We're the only nation that could have done this. Europe try and deal with it. I think the fallout, though, from this for NATO, the fallout for our national security in the future, is some of the damage being done by President Trump irretrievable? Is this actually him expressing his honest view that actually I'm going to look after America first? You know, his national security strategy, China looks after the East. I don't really care what happens in Europe. You deal with it yourself, because frankly, I'm going to look after my own interests. And increasing the language looks more and more likely that is his focus.
And that was laid very starkly bare in that national security strategy document. It'd be interesting to see how the UK government responds to this. How Sir Keir Starmer, who'd been kind of talked about as a bit of a Trump whisperer, manages to maintain that relationship or rebuild that relationship. Also, you know,
the EU can't develop any defense system without the USA. They'll lick for the next 100 years. Yeah, American defenses have been fantastic for the European Union thus far. I don't know if you know this, because France has its own nukes, right? And France was one of the countries that actually refused to join NATO, left NATO, for this reason, because they saw early on that NATO allegiances would actually deny France its own sovereignty, and that it would basically turn France and many other European partners in NATO into missile sponges against the USSR. Okay? That was the understandable attitude at the time. That was the attitude. They were like, why would we do this? Why would we do this when we want to, develop our own relations with the USSR potentially? The GCC is currently learning that lesson in real time, okay?
There are suggestions that there's supposed to be a royal visit to the United States at some point later this spring. It'll be interesting to see what kind of developments are related to that as well. But,
it's just also funny to think that after you just watched the Gulf states get turned into hollowed out shells for the last 30 days, you think America would defend Estonia. If Russia had the capability of moving beyond Ukraine, which it doesn't, right? But imagining a world where, Russia gets to take over Ukraine militarily, it doesn't, but let's say it did, and then they move to Estonia or Lithuania, and America was like, oh, we have to defend Estonia. We have to defend Lithuania. Are you out of your mind, dude? It's just so funny. The only reason why America would ever defend a NATO nation is to defend its sovereignty. Okay? That's it. That's the only ambition there. And if that was too high a cost to bear, America would just drop it. Okay?
There's an awful lot of diplomacy interweaved amongst the military and also the economy aspects of this story. I wonder what your view is of the grasp that civilian leaders have on prosecuting acts of war and conflict and strikes such as this. How do you balance between what a president or a prime minister wants and what militarily can be achieved, and the understanding between the two sides?
Yeah, I mean, it's a fascinating question because our politicians tend to come and go, whereas the military serve long careers. You know, General Kane will have spent the best part of 40 years in the military. You have years where you study military history. You look at the mistakes that were made of old. You learn from other people's mistakes and you develop strategies and plans. Ultimately, all of military action is simply a means to an end, and your political objectives are absolutely crucial. And I remember when I was serving the military, we would hold our political leadership to account to say, you're going to send the young men and women of your country to war. There will be some of them that don't return. You've got to be able to look their parents in the eye and know that you did it for the right reasons, and also you'd plan for the day after. The military will set the conditions, but you now need to know what's the plan for the first day of the post-conflict time. And history shows that our political...
Hassan says that Russia is both advancing in Ukraine and at the same time says they can advance in the rest of Europe if they wanted, especially using tactical nukes. I said Russia cannot advance beyond the areas that they've taken over militarily in Ukraine. As in, Russia cannot occupy, as it stands currently, the entirety of Ukraine to then advance beyond Ukraine to other countries in Eastern Europe. Okay, I don't know what happens to so many people whenever I bring up whenever I say the R word, Russia, everybody just loses their mind and becomes professional misunderstanders in the chat. Okay, I'm not saying it's good that Russia invaded Ukraine. I've said it's bad that Russia militarily invaded Ukraine 1,000,000 times over. And I'm also just being honest about Russia's limitations as far as advancing a ground incursion beyond the Ukrainian soil that they currently occupy.
Masters don't always get that right. On this particular occasion, the very fact that Trump is shooting from the hip all the time, we haven't got time now, but certainly one of my military colleagues, when he started saying NATO's never been there for us and people were frivolously, a long way from the front line in Afghanistan, I served 3 tours, 2 years of my life in Afghanistan. I was backwards and forwards in airplanes, packed full of young men largely that would lost a limb or two. The huge price we paid. We had double the rate of casualties in that conflict per 1,000 folks involved. And for a president to dismiss all of that, I think it's very troubling. And going back to your first point, is what's Prime Minister Starmer going to do? I think he's very wisely tried to play the long game here. President Trump will come and go. It's possible the midterms will stifle President Trump's ambitions. In 3 years' time, he'll not be there. Do you completely destroy the relationship of America and Europe, America's relationship with NATO, or do you just try and keep...
Yes. President Epstein, the real president.
Keep a distance, be moderate, be diplomatic, let this flurry blow over, because it's evident that President Trump is embattled somewhat at the moment, and just try and play it long rather than reacting to every knee-jerk that we see through his Truth Social announcements.
You ready for another one?
Uh-oh.
The country of France wouldn't let planes headed to Israel loaded up with military supplies fly over French territory. France has been very unhelpful with respect to the butcher of Iran, who has been...
Guys, it's going so well. It's going unbelievably well, dude. I need you guys to understand... This is W after W, okay? When the president is crying on Truth Social like this about all of our most valuable strategic allies that we have security cooperative agreements with, refusing to go along with our endless bombing campaigns in Iran and putting their foot down in spite of their vassalized status, that's obviously a sign that things are going so well. Okay, fantastic.
Successfully eliminated. The USA will remember President Donald J. Trump. And I think I'm right in saying that Spain had also denied access to American military flights through its airspace. So it's not just France, it's other European nations, the UK as well, reticent to be as involved as the president would like. And he is angry.
Yeah, but I think what we might be seeing is President Trump laying the foundations of his exit strategy. Right. That actually, there's a lovely quote from Churchill.
Are European politicos and military all that optimistic about the U.S. that things will be fine after Trump and he'll be gone soon? I think they're just going along. They're taking it step by step, day by day. I don't know if there's a tremendous amount of confidence that Donald Trump is going to go away at all. I don't know what the European calculation is, but S&P 500 surges 2.9 to its biggest gain since last spring as hopes build for an end to the Iran war. The market is reacting in the foreseeable ways that we have seen thus far, which is hanging on every word that Donald Trump says that stability will come back again, because everyone has a vested interest in a permanent bull market, right? So they're just like, oh, he said it. He said the right words. Okay, it's time. It's time. Bye, 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 bye. What is this? I'd like to remind everyone, because many European rightoids called the attack on Iran by the U.S. and Israel a brilliant move when it happened, and explained that the rest of us were just pussies who didn't understand Trump's genius, that if Israel and the U.S. had not attacked Iran, absolutely nothing would have happened to us. It's almost physically painful to think about the stupidity of those people. Yeah. If there's a thing, I don't even want to call it human, that I have even less respect for than the American MAGA, it is the Euroid MAGA, okay? You are not even cattle. American MAGA is cattle. You are not even a sentient being, okay? Genuinely, you are the dumbest, most servile thing. You're a totally separate thing. You're not even cattle, okay? You're not alive. It's crazy. They won't hear any of this because they're probably too busy watching Asmongold currently, but it's unbelievable, the servile nature of the Euroid MAGA. Oh my God, I feel so bad for the European Hasanabi, because you have to exist in the same space as some of these morons that literally have no self-respect whatsoever, where they're just at the mercy of whatever the dumbest person on the planet, Donald Trump, says and does, and they have to sit there and be like, yeah, yes, this is so based, yeah. Yeah, it's so based. Oh, you don't understand, yeah. Oh, Donald Trump is so good. God, it's so stupid. It's so stupid. Ugh, how do you live like that?
Well, I'm always mindful of that. He said, history will be kind to me because I intend to write it. And it feels like President Trump is writing this chapter of history. He's writing already, he's laying the foundations of how he was the only president prepared to do this, despite a lack of help from international allies, that he was prepared to put his military in, take the risks, deal with a long-term problem that was Iran. And actually, therefore, based on that narrative, Europe, you're going to have to pick up the pieces. And by throwing spears all over the place, Europe is concerned about the Middle East. I was chatting to Tara, just offset, our Iran expert, and she said one of the things that America's sort of trying to withdraw itself from this, but some of the tech dollars that actually emanate from the Middle East countries, if the Middle East now needs to rebuild some of the damage that's been.
Do you think Asman will change his tune about this war because the majority of his European audience is being affected by this war, sort of like how he changed his stance around Greenland? Probably. Not that it matters, because, again, this is the beauty of farming the lowest common denominator. Okay? If you farm an audience of morons, if you farm an audience of stupids, which, sorry, guys, right-wingers are objectively dumber on average than liberals and leftists are. It's just the case. They are much more susceptible to changes in your commentary, and they won't punish you for it. They won't think you're being indecent. They won't think you're grifting. And they'll just they'll reward you endlessly. That's it. Yeah, if you want to sell to people, if you want to sell something to people with ease, sell to stupid people. And there is no group as stupid as European MAGA. Okay? None. They are dumber than the American MAGA. When you think about the dumbest guy you know in the American MAGA movement. Now, times that by 10. Because at least the American MAGA guy thinks like, oh, American prosperity, American force projection, it makes me feel powerful. It's like, when you're a European MAGoid, okay, when you are a fascist in Europe, because now the international fascist movement has basically just become MAGA, right? You unironically are just saying, like, I don't want any national sovereignty at all, right? I don't want any national sovereignty whatsoever. I just want whatever America wants me to do. I'm so servile. I'm so to America. Even if American actions that I had no control over directly ruins my life in much more meaningful ways than, in much more significant and much more meaningful ways than like the American MAGA movement has their lives ruined, and you still advocate for it. You're no longer in the seat. You're in the hotel room next door. Your wife is getting, you couldn't even get a seat. At least MAGA is sitting in the seat. Unbelievable. Breaking. Germany's Chancellor Merz says the effect of the Iran war in Germany and Europe will be as serious as the COVID-19 pandemic if it expands. Previously, he couldn't hide his glee at this war. And the 12-day war last year, he's practically rubbing his hands when he said Israel was doing our dirty work. Yep. What is this analogy, big dog? I'm just saying.
Done on friendly, then that money won't be flowing into tech industries. And Tara was very clear. The long-term implications of this could be profound for President Trump. But if he writes his own narrative, which he appears to be doing, sometimes it's difficult to put a counter to that.
People are literally clutching their pearls like you aren't, right? I mean, it's just, they can say whatever they want, but enjoy blackouts. You know what I mean? Like, do you see what I mean?